Good man.
That's short and sweet. 21 minutes.
Yeah, but just get it done. Because the trouble is, if you start talking about Spurs, and you start digging up the dirt, you're going to look like a massive like war criminal.
Do you want to do a 20-minute, 30-minute quick one on Friday with the transfer window in its last hours?
Yeah, that would be brilliant.
I'm at home on Friday, so what we could perhaps do is we could draw up any signings like Ugarte. If he goes to United, that gives them that other central defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
So bearing in mind the window shuts at 11 o'clock, if we were to do one midday, we could say we're into the last 11 hours of the window. We could, if you could get the graphic of the 14 that have gone out compared to the 4 that have come in, we could say, what do we need to do? And are we confident of it being done?
I think that's absolutely spot on. Do the race as it is at noon or whatever, and then say, well, they've got until 11 o'clock tonight to make this picture make sense. I think that's a good plan.
I've got a friend who I could bring on with us, and he's I introduce you to. He's a really likable bloke, and he's a proper Stone Island type, not thick.
Oh, sounds like a massive arsehole.
No, but he would make it interesting that you've got two Chris's and H, and it just brings another dynamic to it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm going to put a thing out on the Substack later today with like the formal thing because loads of people are interested. But yeah, let's get this guy through. If you've passed him, that's good enough for me. More than good enough. I think we're live. We're live. Hello and welcome to another version of us. Before we kick off, today we've got some bad news. A football man has fallen, and it's been announced in the last few hours that Sven-Göran Eriksson has passed away. Cancer is a horrible, horrible thing, which goes without saying. But I think it's just fair to mention that before we go anywhere.
Very well said, H.
So back to the world of dreams and Everton. we won, and this is the show. Just in case you're new to this, Chris, I know you're not, but just anybody new, there are people watching this waiting for us to not be happy. There are people who are kind of really geared up for the fact that we can't enjoy a single moment. So all I want to say to preface those doom monitors, those dementors hanging out there saying, well, I went on there after they won 4-0 and you wouldn't believe it was like they were holding a wake. The reality is, this is one of those games that you needed to go to. Because when you're on the way back up Seven Sisters Road to the tube station, as we've all done on far too many occasions, it puts a different spin on things. And you might have a wry laugh over a pint afterwards. But the reality is, if you're watching that game, it's a totally different kettle of fish because Everton were who they were, we were who we were. But as I say, from when you come out the turnstiles to go up the road to head towards the tube station, you need to be on the right end of a 4-0 beating. So with that out there for the incels and the critical thinkers, absentees, what did you think of the game, Chris?
Fortunately, unfortunately, how you choose to see it. I was at the game on Saturday in the South Stand. Look, the bonuses are we won. We scored 4 goals and we kept a clean sheet against quite possibly one of the worst footballing sides I've seen at the Tottenham Stadium for many a season. The quality of Everton wasn't even what you'd expect with a Dyche side. They're usually well set out, thump it long. They've got some big units and they cause teams problems. This team seemed devoid of any ambition, any energy, no dynamism, no flair whatsoever.
I thought they were terrible. And we have to, point these things out. Yes, we scored 4 goals. I think we'll come on to this or include this. I think we should have scored more. Leicester City were appalling, but they had redeeming features. Everton were appalling and had no redeeming features, and it didn't look like a Sean Dyche team to me. I don't know what he was at. I don't know what the state of play with their absentees were. I think maybe they had a huge number of players out or pivotal players out, but they just didn't seem to really get a grip. And the bloody goalkeeper, I'm not a Jordan Pickford fan or whatever his name is. What is it? Pickford or Henderson?
Yeah,
It's Pickford, isn't it?
gifted's on the second one.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, he's a terrible keeper in my book, but he had a shocker of a game.
I think my biggest fear, if I were an Everton fan, would be I support a club that's millions of pounds in debt. Most recent attempts to acquire it have been bitten the bullet. Yet we
Yeah,
could arguably start next season in a brand new, gleaming, shining stadium playing Championship football. And I
I
think there
lived
needs to be a wake up call that Everton are not the big side they once were.
I lived in Liverpool for a couple of years. To my everlasting shame, it wasn't. I have to say, it was a completely devoid of love experience. It was horrible. But it's a football city, and on match days, be it Everton or Liverpool, there is a different vibe about the city. Perhaps because there's a less of a scouse feel to it. But it really has. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it has a charm. So it's a real football city on a match day, and you get a lot of foreign fans, and they're all part and parcel of the deal. It's a great atmosphere. Everton have got a fantastic opportunity to do something pretty bloody wonderful, which is to rival Liverpool, and you just don't see it. You just don't see it, and I fear for all of the stuff that we've been through, all of this, bright new bright new brand, shiny new world, self-harvesting device, all these cashless terminals and all the rest of it. Is it going to bring them back into the game? Because at the moment, as you've pointed out there, their financials are abysmal. They look like a team that should be under investigation for nothing deceitful, like Manchester City, who quite
Footballing
frankly,
crimes.
yeah, but just crimes against football. You're
Yep.
absolutely right. And there doesn't appear to be a spark in the side. And I would have thought that Dyche would have energised something. They just, to me, look as if they're nailed on
Yeah.
for relegation.
In
And
truth,
I was watching the game and seeing where they had so much missing, and then thinking, do you know what? Do you know who would fit the pattern here? And probably there's some nitwit out there thinking, yeah, I think if we got him back, he'd really do a good game for us. Richarlison. He looks
I,
like he came. He looks like an item of clothing that's been taken out of the Everton wardrobe. It fits. You can see him with that team.
I was about to say that Everton deserve everything they get for defrauding us for £65 million for Richarlison.
Yeah. Read them and weep.
He who laughs laughs the loudest.
I'm glad you said that. So looking at the players, I've just got some sort of at a glance sort of statistic stuff here, so we don't completely kill everybody with data, because I know it can go that way. So if you want to give me your reaction to these things, so Romero, 94% passing accuracy, 6 interceptions, 5 tackles, 1, 2 blocks, and of course the goal.
In his 100th appearance for the club, I believe.
Absolutely sensational. But who was really sensational in my book was PEDRO Porro, rapidly becoming a standout player, they said. 82% passing accuracy, which, it has to be said, given his license to roam, is pretty bloody phenomenal. 90% or over for any of the back four, is where you want to be. But 82%, pretty bloody lovely. 5 crosses, 3 successes, which gives you 60%, which is in exceptional territory. If you think when we got him from the place that he was at before, because I've forgotten where I live and my name, his average was about 35%.
Was
So
it Sporting Lisbon?
Correct. You win a
Yeah.
star prize. Yeah. So 5 crosses, 3 success, 60%, 4 tackles, 1, 5 interceptions. I thought he had a stellar game. I still maintain he's in the wrong spot. I would like to see him further forward on the wing.
Agreed.
And if you look at his map, that's what he's doing. Destiny Odoji, 96% passing accuracy. Now, this is just telling anybody that didn't watch the game that Everton were not there. They simply weren't a threat, because this is like, 1 or 2 dropped passes per game of these guys in the main. So 96%, 40% success at crossing the ball, which there wasn't a lot of it, but what there was, the quality was good. And again, I have to say, 40% is exactly where you want people to be. 3 attempts, just 1 on target. Chris, what was your view on Bissouma?
So no criticising the strike, phenomenal goal. I think his first league goal for
wonder
Spurs.
goal, I think. Yeah,
But again, you looked at the middle three, and the middle three were Bissouma, Maddison, and Kulusevski. So Bissouma, I think he did the basics okay.
yeah.
There's a long way to go to redeem himself for his off-field behaviours. And do I still think he's a central defensive midfielder? No, I don't. But neither were either of the other two that he was paired alongside.
I think you're right. 91% passing accuracy, which again is more about Everton, which is, you know, you got to think, oh, this is God, trying to get some enthusiasm, some great gratitude out of these guys. It's hard work, but the reality is, 91%. There's not very many people giving a hard time. Wonder strike goal, as we say. But does it really take a public humiliation to get a decent game out of him? And I think from what Anja said after the game about this business of, when you chasing a child and you tell them off and then they're on their best behavior for the next day, it's the day after that. It's like your dog, you tell your dog don't do that. The dog needs to understand that you don't do it the next week or the next month, because you don't want it to run out onto the road. Has this guy got the wit and the intelligence of your basic dog? I'm not sure he has.
Time will tell, but we've had this conversation personally many times before. But is it a case of too much too soon? Coming from African origins, from countries where gross domestic product are relatively low, coming into the Premiership where money's thrown at him, all of a sudden, has he seen the bright lights, lived in the big city, and thinks he's achieved all there is to achieve in football?
I agree with you, and I think you're absolutely right, and we have to call it as we see it. And I think that this isn't a new story. Absolutely flooding these guys with cash, and you see him dancing around the whole time. Listen, I don't care. I really don't care. Dye your hair pink. I don't care. But you need to put a shift in. You need to live up to your contract.
Turn the clock back to 1990, and we'd have the exact same story about Paul Gascoigne. The circumstance was the same. The mentality was the same, although Gascoigne was head and shoulders on a talent level above Yves Bissouma.
But I agree with you, because if you take away
thing doesn't change.
If you take away the drinking culture, which obviously Gascoigne don't down, I don't think Bissouma is keeping a snufter of scotch in his Gucci toiletry bag. But this business. Yeah, canister of helium, bottle of tonic wine, a bit of, dancing away in the moonlight hours and all the rest of it. And it's as destructive, because we've seen what he can do. We've seen what he can do, dare I say, at Brighton. And everybody was cooing about him when we got bits and pieces at Spurs. But I'm interested. This is the other one I wanted to kind of highlight. Kulusevski, very quiet game. 21 successful passes. And one of my pet hates with stats is people reel out figures like this. But just to give you some context, Johnson, Wilson, and Maddison, they were getting involved. Their numbers were sort of between 60 and upward to the late 70s in touches, passes. But 21 successful passes from Kulu. Very little action there on the ball. Bissouma and Maddison, 60s and 70s. And I think he's still really struggling to find the right spot for this guy. And he didn't have a sensational game. And I was hoping for a bit more.
Yeah, completely agree. As I said, I was sat behind the goal, able to see passages of play, and there were two things I picked up. One, there was no forward ball. There was nobody else, so we were doing lots of 5-yard passes backwards and sideways. And after the second goal, we lost steam. We were going through the motions. There was no energy around our play. No, you could have put that team to the sword, but it was all sideways and backwards. And you thought sometimes we had both our wingers out on the touchlines. Well, one of them was calling for the ball, the other wasn't, but we needed somebody in the Modric mould to ping that forward pass. None of those three were doing it.
I don't think Ange, and this is one thing I will say that I've discussed on this channel before. One of the key principles of, if you like, of Ange ball is that the long ball doesn't really feature. But any of our players, and it's so rare because they've had it kind of drummed into them, any long balls, the accuracy goes out the window. And the stuff that we were seeing, as you would say, from Modric, and certainly more recently from Harry Kane, We're just not getting any of that at all. Now, this one I think we're not going to disagree on at all. Brennan Johnson, the hairdresser, gets beaten up by other hairdressers. Another slumber party performance from him. 76% passing accuracy, which, look, for his forward line position, isn't a disaster. These aren't grounds for divorce. But compared to so many other players, 76% passing accuracy simply isn't good enough. Lost possession on both occasions that he got inside the Everton penalty area. And my question is he being coached?
Well, I don't think he is. But then there's the question is, when did blind faith and loyalty come into the equation? You've been a very successful businessman. If somebody's not performing, you take them out the firing line. So every time of late we've fielded Brennan Johnson, it's felt like we've had 10 men in the side because he just looks unbelievably petrified and terrified every time he gets the ball.
I agree. I mean, the thing is, because it's Spurs, because it's ENIC, because it's Levy, here comes the resentment from over the years. But he looks like a Levy prototype player, like we had with Sessegnon, for example. And it's nothing to do with colour. It's to do with that kind of wide-eyed, oh yeah, he's very smiley and happy, clappy and wavy, but he doesn't bloody deliver. And he simply isn't getting the job done. There are fleeting occasions when he kind of does an impression of a footballer. But the bottom line is when you start, especially as I say, when you start to go through the numbers, all that glitters, there isn't much there. Wilson, 82% passing accuracy, 2 failed crosses, 4 recoveries, and 2 losses of the ball under pressure. I thought he was good. I think people perhaps got a little bit overexcited about him. What do you think?
Early days, he's a young lad. It's his first game. The early signs are encouraging. He looked like something that we haven't got in the squad, and that's a winger who's prepared to drop his head, drop his shoulder, dribble, and take on his opponent. Which is unlike probably the nearest thing we've had since Aaron Lennon. But again, he's a young kid. The early signs were promising. Going on social media and seeing him being heralded as a future Ballon d'Or winner are quite frankly laughable. So
listen, that's what this club does, and as we've agreed before, social media. Oh, and we've got a new feature on the show this week, which is Incel of the Week. So don't go anywhere because you're going to like that. Speaking of how social media reacts to players, Sonny, 37 passes. Just to remind you how dormant Kulu and Johnson were. 3 shots on target and 2 goals from them. Didn't have a bad game.
No, completely agree. Yeah, one of the best I can remember for many a month.
Yep, absolutely. So there isn't much to say, I'm afraid, and that goes along with a lot of the business in relation to the substitutes. Last half hour came on 10 passes. That again was a part of the sort of keep it steady crew. Wasn't really a threat. And if you look at how other people have done, and I'll whistle through the scores elsewhere later. Look at the way that Chelsea behaved themselves against Wolves. Gray and Spence both had 22 minutes. Neither achieved anything of note. Gray has to be said, look, the brighter of the two, but then we might remind ourselves of the difference in cost with those two. Richarlison, we've covered it 27 times already. A massive waste of time. And Bergvall, 16 minutes, charity minutes with a team in a slow gear. I really want to see him play. I know he's young and all the rest of it, but I just want to see more of that guy.
Agreed. Yeah, totally.
So the other thing I was going to come to was, I've lost the bloody thing, but I'll add it because it doesn't matter. I have a photo to add. Substitute strategy of Ange. Are you as worried as I am that this sort of Captain Mannering don't panic sort of, and he just, because we lost, we didn't lose, but we drew, and he threw everybody on, and then this time we're 4-0 up and he throws everybody on. I'm not inspired by that.
No, I get certain substitutions. For instance, Udogie was complaining of tight hamstrings and calves, and he's not gone back from injury. So putting on Spence at left back makes complete sense. But some of them didn't really. You sat and thought, "What's that tactically achieving?" And the answer was, I don't know the answer to the question. It just seemed making a plethora of changes for the sake of change.
So has to be said, the sort of the big boys beating the small boys kind of went off the boil this week. Brighton 2, Man United 2, West Ham 1 at Palace. Fulham beat Leicester City 2-1, which gives you an indicator of the form there. City 4, Ipswich 1. So it's a question of who's going down with Ipswich, and I have to say, I think Leicester City and Everton are primed for that position. Villa were beaten at home 2-0 by Arsenal. Chelsea beat Wolves 6-2. And Liverpool bested Brighton 2-0. What do you think in respect of Newcastle? My only concern there, about them as an opponent, is they're not really scoring so much this season. It's slim pickings, but
well, until Dr. Tottenham comes to see you, and then he cures all of your problems in life. You're in front of the Toon Army. Newcastle at 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon will be an intimidating place. And the thing I've been looking at in most recent weeks is when we come up against Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, or 2 weeks' time, Rice and Partey, you've got tough physical players who's going to put their foot on the ball and get stuck in when it really matters for Tottenham. It seems at the moment, based on the three we mentioned earlier, so again, Kulusevski, Bissouma and Maddison, you wouldn't want any of those on your side in a punch-up. And when you're playing some of the bigger teams, they've got that physicality through the middle where it really matters.
I thought Kulusevski was a massive letdown. That's the truth of it. And my thoughts are entirely that our Newcastle are going to be a bit tougher, a bit more streetwise, Well, and again, Arsenal then just over the brow. The hell after that, it doesn't look great to me. So from my perspective, happy days, 3 points, nice walk, positive walk, straight back, smile on your face up to the tube station. But looking at it from a sort of more technical point of view, or from the grumpy point of view, depending on how you want to play it, it wasn't a fantastic occasion, really.
It covers a lot of holes, and I think it's not grumpy, it's realist. And I think it's just calling out what all proper football fans can see. Let's not get carried away. There's further work to do, but the important thing is build on that work. If we go away to Newcastle next Sunday and get a 3-0 victory, brilliant. 2 wins back to back, no goals conceded, and starting scoring goals. That's where you build things from. But we've imploded the last 2 times at St James's Park, and Hugo Lloris was never seen since. So
well, that tells its own story for those mourning his loss. I think that's just about it. Intel of the week. I don't have the graphic here, but I'm going to put it onto the screen now. And this is a man who is championing a manager who really shouldn't be called out of his depth on the strength of 2 games. So enjoy that. That's it for now. Chris, thank you very much indeed. And we will be back in a week's time. Take care and keep it on.
Cheers, H.